Today we're talking baseball, all things baseball. Pitchers and catchers have finally reported. They're all making the migration to Florida and Arizona. It's a beautiful time of year. The drought is finally over in the baseball world, and we have our favorite sport back once again. And so we were going to sit here, and we were going to talk about pitchers and catchers reporting. We were going to sit here, and we were going to talk about my beloved San Francisco Giants. They are losing their three-time World Series champion and future Hall of Famer manager, Bruce Bochy. We're going to put some talk into that because that man deserves quite a bit of respect for what he did. And we're going to talk about the free agent market, or rather the lack of free agent market we've seen this past couple weeks, or past couple months, rather, I'd say, this postseason, offseason. And then we relayed a beautiful egg the other day when Manny Machado finally decided to sign a contract. And so now we're sitting here and we're seeing this 10-year, $300 million contract that Manny Machado signed with the San Diego Padres. And some are saying that he might be a little underpaid for what he did. Some are saying that he might be getting a little overpaid for what he did. Some people are saying that he's getting paid right where he belongs. But I'll tell you this at the end of the day. The Padres are going to be good this year. They are scary. Their infield, listen to this. They got Eric Hosmer sitting at first base, a proven outstanding free agent signing they had last year. Ian Kinsler, another proven insane infielder, sitting at second base. This kid, Luis Urias, a shortstop who, given last year, he only played 12 games with the Padres, but he was ranked number 32 in the entire major league, minor league system last year. And now they have Manny Machado sitting at third base. That sounds like a pretty reliable infield, both on offense and defense. And I don't think you're going to find a more competitive infield in the entire major leagues at the moment. But nonetheless, joining to my left, we have Dan Asbury once more, another fellow Bulldog and longtime baseball enthusiast. Thank you for joining me. I know we're both knee-deep in the thick of work right now. It's kind of ridiculous to think about it. We're only in February, and yet somehow we're still in this hysterical amount of work. But, that's where we are.
Every time we always get to this off season, it always feels longer and longer, and I get more antsy every year, but it's finally back. So
hopefully baseball will keep us a little distracted from where we're at right now. Yeah. So, how about you? What's your immediate reactions to this big contract that Machado finally signed?
Well, okay. See, he's just one of those players that has slowly developed into one of the villains for me. I don't like him. I think he's, besides all the dirty plays and everything, I've just always felt like he's a little overvalued. So the $300 million 10-year contract, I know that's what was coming. It's just I never really saw it. But Padres have got a great piece of the puzzle that they are really building on. Their farm system is just top-notch in the league. So the Padres are doing a lot of things good, and I think they're on the right track.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the $300 million he's getting either. He was batting sub 300 last year. I think he was batting like 287, which that's not bad. That's a very, very respectable batting average. And he did almost hit 40 home runs last year. But, at the end of the day, there was guys that were averaging above 300, and they are making the $300 million 10 contracts. So I'm just like, he's an outstanding third baseman. It's going to be hard to get a ball past that third base line now with Machado there. But I don't know if the $300 million is really proven for him yet.
Yeah, and you look at the stats, and there's a few gray areas where you're not really sure what you're going to really get with him, especially being sub 300 batting average. But you got to put it in effect. People are throwing away from him. You look at Bryce Harper, who's been in the league for 7 years, and he's had 2 seasons over 300, but we all know the talent's there with that one. So
yeah, it's Harper. Yeah, but we'll get to Harper in a minute. But and we both just said what this means for the Padres. But haven't we kind of seen what the Padres are doing now before? You being a longtime Cubs fan, they had 2 major off-season signings in John Lessard and Jason Hayward. Mm-hmm. And they brought them along board with this fantastic farm system they had been building up over the years. Mm-hmm. And just like that, they snapped and they won a World Series.
Yeah, it's almost like there's just starting to be a method to the madness about it. So now, I guarantee that they have got to at least win a wild card this year, if not win the division. But you're going to see some postseason in baseball from them, start to get their feet wet, especially with how young that team is. Then next year they get one step farther. The year after that, maybe they'll do a last-second push like the Cubs did with Aroldis Chapman, and then just get a World Series out of it. It seems really kind of repetitive after this point, after we've seen it so many times the past couple of years.
No, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, you talk about how we're going to actually see some postseason baseball from this Padres team. I mean, like, we were talking about this a while before this. We haven't seen really a good Padres team in a long time. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe the early days when Jake Peavy was there and when Bruce Bochy was the manager of the Padres as opposed to retiring as a Giants manager. Yeah, they were a pretty sufficient team then, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, this Padres team, I mean, you look at the NL West, I can't say there's going to be a whole lot of competition in the NL West this year beyond them.
Yeah, I mean, with the Dodgers, they got, Russell Martin back?
Yeah.
And, I mean, they got A.J. Pollock. I mean, they've got some good players coming back. I mean, they're making moves. So, I mean, it seemed like it was about time for the Dodgers they got so far in the last 2 seasons. I think they needed to make some changes, get a few different talents in there.
No, I mean, if you're making 2 straight pennants and you're not winning in the World Series, you got to make some changes.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got to get. There's got to be some type of behavioral thing in the locker room that you got to fix. So yeah.
No, and I mean they got rid of their entire outfield, but then you look at the rest of the division. I mean, I want to be high in Arizona because Arizona, I mean, they still have probably the best pitching rotation in all of the NL West. I mean, they still got Greinke sitting there, and I mean, it's going to be a stellar starting. But they also just they just lost Goldschmidt to the Cardinals. So I mean, I don't really know where that offense is going to come from. Arizona was never one to score a lot of runs last year, but Paul Goldschmidt was always an MVP caliber player to help them have an offense still.
Yeah, that's a star power that they had, and they're really going to miss out on this season. So I don't know what we're going to expect from them, but they better work as a team because that's the only thing I really see coming from it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and talk about the Giants. Like the Giants are going to be on a victory lap this year, saying goodbye to Bruce Bochy. But I mean, I guess the Rockies realistically are going to be the biggest threat to them this year. I mean, they still got Arenado, they still got Story, they still got Blackman, and with the 3 of them batting in Denver, it's hard to imagine them not hitting a ridiculous amount of home runs this year.
Yeah, that team is just completely solid every year that you play them. I mean, they can win any baseball game possible in that entire league.
No, absolutely. But I mean, hey, at the end of the day, the National League West is going to be a fun division to watch this year. And I mean, being from the West Coast and being a diehard Giants fan, it's going to be rough having to play the Padres and the Rockies as many times as we do this year. But it's going to be a lot of offense, and it's going to be a fun time watching them.
It's just crazy. As many times as we say the Padres, it's like, man, they're good again. I mean, because until we really started taking them seriously with these talks, I mean, it was like, well, who do the Padres have? And you start just going down the list, and I mean, it's all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, they get one more guy. They get Machado. Now they have a real serious baseball team.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. And this was only a matter of time. I mean, you're bad for only so long. I mean, the league's forgiving. I mean, the way it's set up, you're only, especially in the MLB, when there's like so many of these like fantastic prospects coming out and the draft is so large, it's only a matter of time before you're going to stock up on these prospects and you're going to be able to pay off in the long run. But no, all this aside, Machado is a big signing, and that leaves the next name out on the table, Bryce Harper. What does this mean for Bryce Harper?
Well, okay, so what are we down to? The Yankees, the Phillies, and the Nationals, and you can kind of mix in the Giants. And, yeah, I mean, let's get your opinion on it. I think that Bochy retiring is a big difference maker in that trade talk.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's personally a positive for him. I mean, a lot of people are going to sit here and say it's a negative. I personally thought it was going to be a negative for the Giants to get Harper the second Machado signed with the Padres, because Machado was his biggest competition this free agency and out in the market, and he joined the NL West. So I find it hard to imagine that the 2 big names in the free agency market are both going to go to the NL West. But also, on the same note, Bruce Bochy is leaving. Bryce Harper comes in this year. He kind of gets comfortable with the entire Giants organization. At the end of the year when Bruce Bochy leaves, who are they going to come to when they need a recommendation for a manager? Yeah. The man who they're paying the most money. I think Bryce Harper could see this as a positive and see, hey, maybe I come over to the Giants now, get a little more control with that team than I'm having with the Nationals, who already have like kind of a set in stone system they're sticking to, and I could really build a franchise or build a team that already has a solid foundation, a World Series foundation, into the next caliber of a level team.
And I think that has to be the case in order for him to go to Giants, because he's not going to sign a long-term deal with a lot of uncertainty on the table. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, the 3 teams realistically on the table for him now are the Yankees, the Phillies, and the Nats. Those are the clear contract options out of the table. But I mean, I don't think the Yankees are giving him a long-term contract. They don't have the money to give him a long-term contract.
I just think that the Nationals, I don't see him going back. I think it's time for him to move.
Absolutely not. And I mean, the Phillies, I think they may have given him the 10-year offer, but Harper clearly was waiting to sign that because he knew it wasn't going to be as much as Machado. And now that Machado signed it, I think he went back to the Phillies and said, do better. do better for me because I know you can do better.
Oh, they're going for that the world or the record value deal. What was it, $326 million from Giancarlo Stanton for 13?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, what do you think he's worth in reality?
He is going to get paid. That is for sure.
I mean, the number's always been 400 mil, and I mean, he's not gonna get 400 mil. I hate to admit it, but there's a luxury tax in MLB. They have the beauty of no salary cap, and that pays off quite a bit. But at the same time, there is still a luxury tax that teams are starting to pay. And when you're not winning World Series every year, and there's been this variety in World Series teams, there's just not going to be the money with some of these franchises to be paying him that 10-year, 400 mil. Yeah. No, but all that aside, there's a number of other free agents out there too. And I mean, when do you think they all start falling along with it? I mean, there's still Dallas Keuchel out there. There's still Carlos Gonzalez. There's still Adam Jones. And I mean, all three of those guys were top 5 in their positions. I mean, Adam Jones was batting .281 last year. Carlos Gonzalez was batting .275. And Dallas Keuchel was throwing 3.7 ERA with 150 strikeouts last year. I mean, what's with the free agency market? Is this ever going to just start being forgiven?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting so close to getting to reporting for spring training for everybody and being on the same page. I would be really surprised if these moves didn't start going into place. Starting with Dallas Keuchel, I think besides, of course, Machado and Harper, I think he's the most interesting free agent that you could have. I see him going back to the Astros, though, doing a short-term deal, maybe a one-year deal, because once he signs, they now have Wade Miley, Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, and Keuchel in that lineup. That is an unbelievable rotation.
Yeah, I mean, is there a better rotation out there than them? I mean, maybe the Red Sox, because, I mean, the Red Sox are a scary good rotation with Chris Sale sitting on the top of it. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, outside of that, I can't think of a more competitive starting rotation than the Astros. Yeah. No, but, I mean, it will be interesting to see who those names go to. And nonetheless, whoever they go to, they will be huge signings for all of those teams to get them. So, with now spring training starting, and we're starting to get a little excited with all these free agents finally making it, who are some teams you're excited from both the NL and the AL? Give me 3 teams for each.
All right, so I would say the Phillies are definitely my number one most. I'm really excited to see how this team kind of develops because they have made some huge moves, getting guys in, but also bringing back their studs. They got Aaron Nola on a 4-year extension. They brought in Andrew McCutchen. They now have Arrieta in that rotation. David Robertson, JT Realmuto. I mean, they have a great, crazy lineup coming up. And I mean, especially if they get Harper, this is a World Series lineup.
No, I mean, that'll be scary, definitely. And I wanted to pick the Phillies a lot from that National League East, but it's just hard to not bet against the Braves. I mean, the Braves were so good last year and were so ahead of their time. I mean, they're kids on that team. I mean, they got a bunch of 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds running that franchise, and they were a year or two ahead of expectation. And then they signed Josh Donaldson, a former MVP and one of the most electric offensive threats you can have. I mean, at any point he can pop off and just change the game for you. And I mean, that Braves team is going to be just as good, if not potentially better, I think, than the Phillies next year. Yep. Who else you got from the National League you excited about?
From the National League, I mean, my Cubs. I'm excited to see what we got going. Yu Darvish has really got to have a big year for us. I think that was one of the biggest keys that we missed last year. We are going to be a little slow to the start with Brandon Morrow being hurt for the start of the season, but I mean, no, I mean we're coming back fresh. We're going to be healthy, but I mean we're back to our Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Anthony Rizzo, and lineup in the infield. I'm still so lost on what we're going to do with Addison Russell, if we're even going to get anything from that. If we're going to shut him down, who knows? But I'm excited. I mean, we're making the right moves. We're bringing some guys in, but I think just as we get to keep playing some more, that our team's going to start to develop.
How do you guys think you compete with the Cardinals? Because, I mean, that's who I got picked for myself. The Cardinals are going to be good this year. I mean, they got 2 potential MVP caliber players sitting there. I mean, Goldschmidt every year is always an MVP type player. And then you got Carpenter, who just, at the end of last year, was so hot and, changed that Cardinals team from, a non-playoff team to a playoff team. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, with those additions, Andrew Miller now closing, I mean, that is going to be a really stacked lineup. I mean, but that division, now the Brewers just brought back Moustakas. I mean, they got Christian Yelich coming off of his best season. It's going to be a very good division. This is going to be one of the most exciting ones in the entire league.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I keep forgetting you can't sleep on the Brewers either. The Brewers made it farther than anyone else.
They've been a little more quiet than I would have expected them to be in this offseason. I know they had a great season last one, but I would have expected them to still try to capitalize on some things, but they didn't really make it a whole lot of moves.
No, absolutely. But, I mean, in a way, that was how the Brewers ran their system last year. They played it quiet, and, I mean, they were successful playing it quiet last year. So I don't blame them for doing that. And moving on from the National League to the American League, I presume we're both relatively excited by some similar teams in the American League. But who you got picked out there?
Well, all right, so the Houston Astros and the Yankees are my big ones. Because I think the Yankees maybe had probably the best offseason. They got key players coming back with Aaron Judge, John Carlstan. They're going to have explosive years. CC Sabathia, happy retirement. That's a big loss just to have in the league. Loved watching him. But Luis Severino, he actually changed his diet in the offseason.
Really?
So, yeah, he was finding himself to be really fatigued in the later innings. So he changed his diet, and they got him on a strict plan. So he's going to have a pretty good season, too, I think.
I guess. I mean, that's fair enough. I can't disagree with that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's hard to bet against the former World Series champs, the Boston Red Sox, this year. I mean, they didn't change a thing about the roster. I mean, they added a few free agents this offseason, like I'm looking right now. But beyond that, I mean, they didn't change a thing from that World Series team. And that World Series team went just so far and beyond ahead of the rest of the league last year. Do they need to change a whole lot? No. I mean, the Yankees, the Astros, and the Red Sox, at the end of the day, they're set up to win 100-plus games for the next 2-3 years, and it's terrifying.
No, I would love to see another the Yankees and Red Sox 100-game win season. That would be sweet.
No, I mean, I can agree more. Hey, but with spring training starting, it's only like a matter of a week before we start to see some live action ball. So very excited about it. Appreciate the time, Dan. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Coming up at the break, I had some more chance to talk with a few more Butler baseball players. We had our first series this past weekend. We took on Ryder down in South Carolina, and we took 2 out of 3 games. So please enjoy that package.
Hey guys, Chelsea Groves here with ButlerSports.com. The baseball team will head to New Orleans this weekend for the All-State Sugar Bowl Baseball Classic. But first, let's recap. The Bulldogs came back to Indianapolis, taking 2 of 3 games from Ryder last weekend in South Carolina. After a rough start to the weekend, the Dogs put up 23 runs in the final 2 games of the series.
I just think we were a lot more relaxed in day 2. For some reason, opening day, we came out, I thought we were a little bit too hyped up.
Game 1 was a tough one, but I had a lot of confidence in the guys, especially behind me on the field, because, you know, everything's coming together finally. You know, we've practiced during the off season. We've done so much together as a team that I knew that they'd have my back and that we'd be able to get the job done, and we did.
I think you need those couple games under your belt to get used to, you know, how baseball's played at this level and to really kind of prep yourself. And I always go back to mentally because that's just way more important than physically at this point in time in the season.
Several players had standout performances, including freshman Greg Gilbert, who went 5 for 10 in his first series at Butler. And Big East Player of the Week Kyle Smith went 6 for 11 with 2 home runs to help lead the Dogs to a series win.
It was down the line, freshman through senior. Most importantly, freshman Greg Gilbert, he was, I think, 5 for 10 on Saturday, which is huge as a freshman stepping up. And then goes all the way down the line. Kyle Smith, fifth-year senior, just could not get out.
Butler will be back in full swing this weekend as they make the trip down to the Big Easy to take on Rutgers, Chicago State, in New Orleans.
Well, New Orleans is really good this year. They brought in like over 12 junior college players. They beat Michigan State in a series last weekend, and they'll be a very tough opponent down there. And then anytime you play a team at Power 5 playing Rutgers out of the Big Ten will be a big step up for us as well. So it'll be fun playing 3 different opponents this weekend in a tournament format. A little different than trying to win a series. You play each team in 1 game down there and try to win a tournament. And we're looking forward to getting better. That's what this is all about, is each weekend making progress, getting better. So by the time we hit St. John's in conference, we're ready to go.